Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, we're continuing the discussion that we started last Monday on an article that I saw on the Forbes website called 4 Common Leadership Problems and Their Solutions. Last week, we talked about what would happen if your team isn't listening to each other and what the causes of that are and what the leadership solutions are in those situations. Great discussion. Go back and listen to it if you haven't yet. On this episode, I want to talk about the second item in the article, which is what happens when your team is consumed by negativity. And I think this one is a little bit different than when your team isn't listening to each other, because negativity it's a mindset more than anything else. And it can have different causes, some of which are can be solved by leadership training and development, some of which have to be solved by changing the makeup of the team or who is on the team. And it's the responsibility of leaders to figure out where the source or causes of this negativity lies in order to effectively turn it into positivity. Because just being a positive person as a leader, while that is necessary and it's important, that alone won't necessarily solve the problems that arise from a team that is consumed by negativity if that positivity is not coupled with very specific actions by the leader where those actions are needed in order to make it a turnaround. It's not simply, there's almost memes of it and plenty of like movie tropes where you have, like the cheerleader that comes in and says, "Hey everybody, let's be positive." And they all look at that person and they go, look at them like they're an idiot. You can't be that leader, but the positivity is needed and it needs to be coupled with action, very specific action.
Yeah, I think too, it's rare. It's rare that you see entire teams kind of consumed by negativity. Typically what you see are some real concerns, some real things that a team needs collectively. And then you may have a handful of people on a team that just in general, like whether they're over it, they're burned out, they feel like they've reached the limit of opportunities they have, like whatever the case is, and maybe people are holding on to things that have happened over the past, and again, many times these are real things that have happened, and people kind of have like a right to feel that way. I think though, we've talked about it a lot in the podcast. Like if you do feel that way, if you had these experiences with a leader in an organization, if things aren't getting better, the best thing for you to do really is like leave. You know what I'm saying? Like go somewhere where you can have a better opportunity. Go somewhere where you don't have to have that feeling of resentment or whatever the case is. But it happens, and I think from a leadership standpoint, when you have teams in that space, it's really important to just listen and talk about it and talk about the real things that are causing some of these things. I think sometimes, to your point, like, maybe you don't walk into a conversation or walk in to talk to a team or your leaders and you're like the rah-rah positivity. It's all going to be great. It's going to be amazing. We're going to do great things. Maybe you're not doing that. But if you're not willing to go into a meeting or have a conversation and actually share out loud what some of the real things are that are happening that may be causing some of this negativity or at the center of why the team feels that way, in essence, that's kind of what you're doing. You're not talking about the reality of what's happening, and instead you're trying to like get by it quickly or paint over it, or can we move forward, or let's let things go. Well, that sounds good in theory, but we probably need to have a conversation about it. And there's been many times as a leader where I've walked into small teams, big teams, different things, and had to sit down and say, "Hey, let's talk about what's going on." I can sense right now, that we're not in a good spot. I can see that there's good work that we want to do, but there's a lot of negativity feelings that are going on here. So there's a couple things that I want to share that I've recognized or that I've observed that make sure that you're clear that I see it. And I'm going to say things like, this is a lack, or just a failure of leadership. I'm going to say things like, that's unacceptable. I'm going to say things like, that's not aligned with values. That's not aligned with the work that we want to do. I'm going to talk about these things and I'm going to put them out there and say, so I can't go back into the past and change this experience. What I can do is talk about this, and I can talk about where do we go from here. and how do we move differently? How do we adjust? What are the things that we can change within our control that allow us to be able to move forward? And for some of you, that might not be possible. And I'm going to say that out loud. For some of you, you might be in a space where it's like somebody's been here before and said the same things to you and nothing's changed.
Right.
For some of you, like there might be too much resentment or too much negativity or too much feeling of like how things used to be to how they are, whatever that might be too much for you, and that's okay as well. And if this is not the place, this is not the work that you want to do, you don't want to put forth the effort to help us get into a positive place, then I'm okay if you tell me that. I would rather you let me know kind of how you feel and where you're at so we can help you do what you want to do and kind of move on. What we're not going to allow or stand for is that continual element of negativity or pushing back against the rest of the team trying to do great work. So I think like conversations like that are critical if in fact you're walking into a team that is consumed by negativity.
Sure. If a person is negative, if they have a negative outlook, and you say things like, what we're not going to allow is for the continued negativity, then that what that means basically is if you're saying you can come to me with anything, if you're feeling negative about this role or this job or these expectations or this workload or whatever it is, I want you to talk to me about it, and I want to try to go through some things that can happen that we can do to make it more realistic for you or to help you along on this journey. But if a person is doing that, that assumes that they don't want to feel negative either. They want to feel positive about it. And that is inherently a good thing. That means that it might be possible to salvage that relationship between the person and the job they have. But sometimes it's not. And when it's not, it doesn't necessarily mean that what the expectations are now are not realistic or that they're not good or that somebody's doing something wrong. Sometimes when a job description changes or when the expectations change over time, because obviously companies that don't change those things over time are the ones that will die. You need to change your expectations over time because the market changes and the customers change and the economy changes. All these things change and the company has to adapt to that. And it might be that a role migrates from one thing to another slowly or quickly, and the people in that role are no longer a fit for that role because the expectations have changed, and sometimes they can come along for the journey. Sometimes they can change to fit, but the anxiety that they feel on whether or not they can change is something that can lead to that negativity. So if they want to be able to fit into the expectations, that they want to be able to do their job correctly and well and to the best of their ability, but they are unable to, this is when leadership has to step in and decide, can this person be taught these things? Can this person get these skills? Because in the absence of the skills, while the job description or the expectations continue to change, you're only going to have that negativity continue to grow from that person because they either A, will never be able to get on board, or they want to get on board, but they can't because they don't have the skills. And if you don't address those things, that negativity is what spreads. But if you have one or two or three people on a team that have these feelings and that they start, kind of spouting negative things here and there to their teammates, it's insidious because it starts with little comments. Oh, something happens and they go, there's a surprise, those little things, but they are seeds that get planted in the minds of the teammates that they work with. And those seeds can grow in the absence of a leader that comes in and stomps it out. And the people who are able to be turned negative, who were normally positive or at least neutral, those people can be turned around back into the positive again, but only in the absence of the negative seed that was there to begin with. And so if you're a leader, you need to figure out where this negativity is stemming from. And if you have a team of 15 people and 10 of the 15 people seem to be doing their job perfectly fine and getting everything done and exactly what they're supposed to do, then it's very unlikely that the expectations of the job are unrealistic. It's very unlikely that the workload is unrealistic. It's very unlikely that there's an expectation that is not realistic. It's more likely that the people who are unable to do it either don't have the skills or they don't have the desire. And if you have a team of 15 people and all 15 of them are not able to get anything done, or they all have a negative outlook, and you're not seeing results out of any of them, then it is very possible that the workload is unrealistic. And then you have to look at what that workload or those expectations are, and kind of dial it back or address it to be able to keep the team, with you as you move through the journey together. Or it means getting rid of the entire team. That typically is not the right way to go. So you really have to figure out whether it's kind of localized to a few people, and when you have when you have like a spasm in your back, and at the beginning of the day, you know exactly where it's coming from. It's that one little spot behind your shoulder blade, and you feel it. That's exactly where it is. By the end of the day, it's just like, oh, my whole back is hurting, and it's because that little pain point has kind of radiated out, and it's affecting other things too. And you kind of lose the ability to know where that pain is actually coming from because of how long it's been there. It's affecting everything else. You have to get it back to localized again. You have to go back to where the actual source is, and oftentimes it's one or two or three people that are affecting the entire team.
Yeah, and I want to underline as well, like there's probably, to your point, a couple of people that really kind of guide and influence negativity. Many times, I found out, that their experience has led them into that space, right? And like something that happened, a lack of leadership. Like, it's very rare that somebody's just negative and they've always been negative and they haven't cared before. Like, that's just
they probably wouldn't have gotten
right?
the job to begin with.
Exactly. Like, there's been
Yeah.
something that has happened,
Sure.
and I think addressing that something and talking through that and asking if they feel that they're capable of moving on and working through it. Like, that's a really important thing to do and a really important conversation to have, because it's really easy to just walk in and be like, well, so-and-so's negative, nobody likes them, they always have a problem, it's always an issue, blah, 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 blah. And then you talk to them and you realize, like, well, wait a minute, like, I can see where they have concerns, but I'm not picking up this massive negative energy. And maybe some of it is masking because you're the leader, you're the new leader, whatever. But I think many times, because of that defensive element they've put up, and over time they've pushed people away, that nobody's willing to have a real conversation with them about their experience, what happened, where we're at, and then asking them, like, is this worth it? Like, are you able to work through this? Is there a space in the future where you figure like you can let these things go and we can move forward? Because if not, that's okay. Like, we still need to talk about it, because then this probably is not the right place for you, right?
Right.
Like those conversations have to happen if you're serious about not only helping the larger team, but then building skill and capability as a leader. Because the easier thing to do is like, well, then just start over. Right. Just walk in and be like, oh, it's a negative team, a lot of negativity. Let's just start over. Well, okay. But that then assumes that you believe that there's no way that you can move forward in a lot of ways. The trap that sometimes people can fall into and leaders can fall into, though, is like, well, if you've got this person and Chris was their leader, and they tried and put forth an effort, and they weren't able to change this person or get them to a good spot. Then Lorenzo tried, and he did his thing, and this person's still here, but they still have these ongoing issues or situations or negativity. Right. Now, if it's the third person, well, now is this about your ego or about the belief that these other leaders have also attempted to do this work? Like, oh, I can be the one to fix them. I can get, nah. Like, at what point do you then say, we've had plenty of opportunities here
Right.
for this person to show up in this space, and they're just continuing not to? And regardless of what they know, how long they've been here, how much they sell, how good they are at what they do, like all those things, we've talked about it a million times. No matter how good they are at something, if they are a negative element of the team, it's not good for the team. It's not good for your business. You got to figure something else out.
Oh, for sure. The number of time. First of all, when I see that happen, to me that implies there is a lack of skill in the rest of the team. And so here's what I mean by that. If you have a person who is a generally negative person, but they do this one thing really well, like they do their job well, like they're the best at doing their job, but they're a negative person and they bring the rest of the team down. A lack of desire or willingness to put expectations in place that person changes their attitude and becomes a more positive influence on the team. When that happens, it implies that if it's the same leader, it implies that it was the leader's fault that the person became negative to begin with, and now that leader doesn't want to look at themselves in the mirror to address it, their own shortcomings. If you're a new leader coming onto a team and you can't make that happen for that person, that implies that you don't have confidence in the skills and ability of the rest of the team, to the point where you think you will be negatively hurting the team by that person's skills going away. Like they're not able to do, they're the best at this job. If we lose them, then we're going to be, we're going to be doing a disservice to ourselves. So we're going to deal with the negativity. We're going to cope with it or live with it because of the positive aspects of the job performance this person brings. And it might be the kind of thing where the work that you do as a leader is in the background training up other people to make sure that job is done over the course of 1 or 2 or 3 months, so that at the same time that you're coaching this person and saying this negativity has to stop and you have to change your mindset, at some point in time, that person will either leave on their own because they're tired of being talked to about their attitude, or you will have to separate them from the organization because you are tired of their attitude. And if you're not in the background making sure that the rest of the team is able to do the work that person is going to be leaving behind, that you don't have somebody to kind of jump into that spot and do that role, then of course it's going to be daunting to think about that person going away. But that doesn't mean it's not your responsibility. It just means that you're giving yourself a false dichotomy. Oh, I'm either going to lose these skills or I'm going to have to deal with the negativity. No, if you're a leader, it's neither. You don't have to do either. The solution is give the person a reasonable but very fast chance to change their attitude while you're developing the skills of the rest of the team. Because I promise you, the person who is negative and continuing to do their job because they do their job well, they know that they're the only person who can do their job. They know that they're the best at doing their job, and they look at that as a cloak of invincibility, so to speak, that they can take with them and allow them to get away with the things that they shouldn't be getting away with. If they start to see that the rest of the team can do the job as well as they can, that fact alone might cause them to change their attitude, because they don't feel like they're, kind of separated or kind of above everybody else because of the skills that they have. If you don't have that, then that will continue. And you know what? If it's negative enough, then sometimes the right thing to do is to get rid of them even before you have the skills. And the skills get taught on the fly, in the moment. You might have to jump in as a leader and help out temporarily. But if the person is negative enough, the spread from that negativity from that one person to the rest of the team, that could be causing so much damage in the meantime that it might not even be worth waiting until you have the skills developed on the team to take care of what they're going to be leaving behind. And you have to deal with it, because again, it's easy to teach skills. It's a lot harder to teach positivity to a person who is just kind of hell-bent on being negative, because whatever they've gone through, they're kind of past the point of no return.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1-minute hack. But first, a few words from our sponsors.
All right, if you're a leader of people and you're trying to solve an issue of negativity on your team, once you've determined where the negativity is coming from, the 1 or 2 or 3 people that is kind of spreading from there, the first thing to do is to have conversations with each of them and set very, very realistic, almost baby step expectations on what the expectations are from you going forward from an attitude standpoint. And the reason why they have to be really baby steps is because all you're trying to do in this first interaction is determine whether or not the person has the desire to change. If you start out with what all of the expectations are, then it's possible that because of the person's experience, because of the lack of skills or lack of learnings or lack of leadership they've had in the past, it's possible they won't be able to meet all of those expectations right away. And then you could falsely attribute their failure to attitude when it's actually something else. But if you start with an expectation that is very small, that will allow you to determine whether or not that person actually has the desire to change, then you will know where your effort should be put and how much effort should be put into developing them. So if you can determine that they do have the desire to change, that sets your road differently on what the course of action is with them. They need more time, potentially with you. They need more one-on-ones with you to kind of level set and talk out what the expectations are and what the progress is. And you can ask them to give you specifics about what they've done that they saw as a positive, and you can give them specifics once you've determined that they do want to make the change and to become a more positive person. And that's actually very meaningful work to do if you can determine that that's where a person is in their own head. But if after that first interaction, you determine that they don't have the ability to move past even this one baby step, then first, it allows you to put your effort towards making sure that they can either leave the team, with grace and dignity, or leave their team involuntarily if they're unable to make those changes, very quickly, and put your effort and focus of, leadership and development and training into the people who actually want it and who will actually get something from it, as opposed to somebody where it's kind of, falling on deaf ears. And so determining the motivation of the person first is key to making sure that the effort you're putting in is actually fruitful effort and not wasted time.
Yeah, I think it's such an important part. People have to be open and willing to want to change and be a part of wherever the team is going. And that's not to say that you don't put any effort in. I think to your point, like, you have to put some effort in,
right?
But then it has to be matched, and it has to be matched quickly. It's like if I'm going to put forth this effort to help us move forward. And I'm not asking for all of the effort right now, but I am asking for some, and I need to see that reciprocated. And I think that's the point around saying, well, this is what I need to see from you, but also here's what we're not going to stand for anymore. Like, we're not going to allow this type of behavior. So even if it's not this out of the gate, somebody's running like, okay, now I was negative, now I'm super positive. No, that's not realistic in a lot of instances. What is realistic is to say, like, hey, maybe I'm not super positive yet, but I'm not going to do these negative things anymore. And that, to me, is a step in the right direction. And that allows for an opportunity to say, okay, now I'm willing to invest a little bit more. And again, I can't walk into the investment and put all my chips in, right? Like, but that's a conversation to have, to say, like, I'm willing to continue to invest as you also invest. But the minute that you stop investing, the minute that you fall back into negative behaviors, the minute that you feel like, you're going to push back on the places that we're going to have another conversation about it. So you're kind of also laying out, what this looks like. And, to your point, like, the choice they have in front of them to do what's best. And to make a decision that's going to help them be more successful in the future.
Right. And as a leader, what you can also do too that might help this, because it's hard for a person who is negative in general to change their own mindset overnight. So if the expectation is what is more along the lines of what they're allowed to say and do around other people, then that is a realistic expectation, what they're allowed to say and do around other people. It might not be as realistic to tell them you have to change the way your mind thinks about this, and you have to be more positive in your mind. You can't help the way you feel, and the way you feel is a result of all the experiences that you've had. But as a leader, you can say to that person, hey, you know what, anytime you're feeling this way, something triggered it. Something happened that made you feel this way. And if you have the ability to bite your tongue for a minute and not spread that negativity to your teammates and to other people, what I would love for you is to come and vent to me. As your leader, come and vent to me. You can tell me, I'll sit there while you yell and scream and kind of about what's going on that is bothering you, and I might be able to solve that. I might be able to tell you what information you're missing that might have led you to this conclusion that isn't necessarily true, or I'll vent with you and say, you know what, that sucks. I can understand why that will be frustrating. It's frustrating for me too. Let me tell you how I get through it, and let's see if that helps you. And so if a person is willing to do that, at the very least, it shows that they want something to change. And as long as they're willing to not spread their negativity to others, and you can help them through this, you're already on the road to kind of saving that relationship or saving that person. It's when they're unable to do those little things, like come to you when they have an issue that they want to vent about, like being unable to bite their tongue when it comes to how they talk to other employees, or how they position what the company or leadership expectations are to other employees. It's when they're doing those things and that doesn't stop, that's when you can kind of say that the desire to change isn't there, and now it's just misery's looking for company.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.